You don't have to explain yourself to everyone. You don't have to prove your worth to people who only see your silence as weakness. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is say nothing. Not out of fear, but out of strength. Because not everyone deserves access to you. Let's get real for a second. Most of us think we have to respond to everything, every opinion, every text, every person who tries to question our worth or demand our attention. But here's the truth: your silence is not a sign of weakness, it's a sign of control. When you stop explaining, when you stop defending, when you stop needing to be understood by everyone, that's when you begin to understand yourself. We live in a world that rewards noise. Everyone's talking, everyone's posting, everyone's trying to prove something. But peace doesn't come from being heard. It comes from being still. It comes from knowing you don't need validation to know your value. The power of silence is not about cutting everyone off. It's about reclaiming your energy, protecting your boundaries, and reminding yourself that your peace is sacred. You see, when you learn to sit in silence, you start hearing things that were drowned out before. Your instincts, your goals, your truth. The right people will never make you question your worth. The wrong people will make you feel like you have to earn their respect. Silence is how you learn the difference. It's not your job to convince anyone to see your heart. It's your job to protect it. And that means not everyone deserves your time, your trust, or your energy. Stop giving unlimited access to people who bring limited value. You are not obligated to be available to everyone. You are allowed to choose peace over performance, quiet over chaos, and solitude over superficial connections. Let's break down what mastering the power of silence really means, and how to use it to protect your peace, rebuild your confidence, and rise above the noise. Silence is one of the most misunderstood strengths in the world today. People often confuse being quiet with being weak, when in reality, silence is a language of power, of clarity, of self-control. The moment you stop needing to respond to everything, you begin to reclaim authority over your emotions and your energy. Silence teaches you discipline. It's the ability to stay calm when your ego wants to explode, to stay grounded when chaos surrounds you, and to stay focused when distractions are pulling at your attention from every direction. When you embrace silence, you are no longer driven by reaction, you become intentional in every move you make. You start realizing that not every comment needs an answer, not every insult deserves your time, and not every argument is worth entering. The people who try to provoke you, who test your patience, who question your worth, they thrive on your reaction. The moment you engage, you hand them your power. Silence, in that moment, becomes your shield. It says, you don't get to control how I feel. You don't get to determine my peace. That's strength. It's not easy, especially when everything inside you wants to defend, to fight, to prove. But the discipline to stay silent in those moments is what separates those who live with peace from those who live in chaos. The most powerful people in the world know when to speak and when to say nothing. They understand that words are energy, and energy is limited. When you talk too much, when you explain yourself constantly, you leak power. But when you know when to hold back, when to observe, when to let silence do the talking, you start to command respect without demanding it. People begin to notice your presence not because of what you say, but because of how you carry yourself. Silence gives your words more meaning when you finally choose to speak. It makes people listen differently because they've learned that you don't waste words. You use them with purpose. In silence, you also find yourself. The world is loud. Everyone has an opinion. Everyone's shouting their version of truth. But in that noise, it's easy to forget your own voice. When you step back and allow silence to surround you, you begin to reconnect with your intuition. You start hearing your inner voice again. The one that gets buried under judgment, fear, and outside influence. That voice is honest. It knows what you need to do next, what's right for you, and what you need to let go of. But you can't hear it when you're constantly speaking, reacting, or defending. Silence gives you that clarity. It's not about avoiding people or shutting down communication. It's about choosing your peace over unnecessary noise. When you master silence, you start mastering yourself. You stop being controlled by external chaos and start operating from internal calm. The world will still test you, people will still push your buttons, but your silence becomes your statement. A declaration that your energy, your emotions, and your peace belong to you. Your energy is one of the most valuable things you have, yet most people give it away without even realizing it. Every time you engage in meaningless arguments, chase approval, or allow toxic people to occupy space in your mind, you're spending energy that could have been invested in your growth. Protecting your energy doesn't mean you're cold or detached. It means you finally understand that not everyone deserves access to you. There's a difference between being kind and being available to everyone. Kindness comes from strength, overexposure comes from insecurity. The moment you begin to value your energy as something sacred, you start to see your life change in ways that feel lighter, freer, and more in control. People will always take as much as you allow them to. Some will come into your life because they value you, while others will come because they need something from you. The challenge is learning to recognize the difference. Protecting your energy means setting clear emotional boundaries, not out of anger, but out of self-respect. It's about saying no without guilt, stepping back when things feel draining, and understanding that peace sometimes comes from distance. When you constantly say yes to everyone else, you're often saying no to yourself. The cost of that habit is your focus, your motivation, and your mental health. It's important to understand that you don't owe everyone an explanation for your silence or your space. Some people won't understand your boundaries, and that's okay. They're not meant to. You're not being rude for choosing peace over chaos or solitude over drama. When you remove yourself from conversations that go nowhere, from relationships that no longer feel aligned, or from environments that constantly drain you, you're not quitting. You're protecting your peace. You're giving yourself the permission to grow without the constant noise of people who don't understand your vision. Energy is contagious. If you spend time with people who complain, gossip, or live in negativity, you'll absorb it. But if you surround yourself with focus, gratitude, and purpose, that becomes your reality. Protecting your energy also means becoming aware of what you feed your mind. The news you consume, the conversations you engage in, the content you scroll through, all of it influences your state of mind. Ask yourself, is this giving me energy or is it taking it away? Because every moment you spend reacting to negativity is a moment you could have spent building something positive. Start treating your energy like time, because once it's gone, you can't get it back. You don't have to be available to everyone 24/7. You don't have to explain why you need space or why you're prioritizing yourself. The people who truly respect you will understand that your boundaries aren't walls, they're filters. You're simply filtering out what doesn't serve you anymore. Protecting your energy is an act of power. It's how you take your control back, how you keep your peace intact, and how you ensure that the best of you is reserved for the people and purposes that truly deserve it. Silence gives you the ability to see what words often hide. When you stop constantly talking, explaining, or defending, you start to notice things that were always there but hidden beneath the noise. Observation becomes your greatest advantage. You begin to see people's true intentions, not just their words. You notice patterns. Who shows up when things are hard? Who disappears when you have boundaries? Who listens? And who just waits for their turn to speak? Most people miss these details because they're too busy reacting, too busy trying to be heard, too busy trying to control the situation. But when you step into silence, you shift from reacting to observing, from guessing to understanding. That's where your clarity begins to grow. The art of observation is about listening with more than your ears. It's reading body language, energy, tone, and timing. You can tell a lot about a person not by what they say, but by what they avoid saying. Silence gives you that awareness. It gives you time to think before you respond, to understand before you assume. Most people regret what they say in the heat of emotion because they haven't learned to pause. Silence gives you that pause, a sacred gap between what happens and how you choose to react. And in that gap lies your power. Observation also helps you understand yourself better. When you quiet your external world, you become more aware of your internal one. You start noticing your triggers, your emotional responses, the patterns that keep repeating in your life. You begin to ask yourself, why do I feel this way? Why do I keep allowing this? Why do I need this person's validation? These are questions that only silence can answer. You can't understand yourself when you're constantly surrounded by noise. You need stillness to uncover truth. The more you observe, the more control you gain over your emotions. You stop letting people push your buttons because you finally understand where those buttons came from. Observation is not passive, it's strategic. It gives you leverage in life, in relationships, in decision-making. When you observe before acting, you start responding with wisdom instead of impulse. You start seeing the bigger picture, not just what's happening, but why it's happening. This awareness saves you from unnecessary conflicts, from toxic connections, and from repeating the same mistakes over and over. You learn that not everything deserves a reaction. Not every situation needs immediate action. Sometimes the smartest move is to step back, watch, and let things reveal themselves. Silence sharpens your intuition like nothing else. It's not just about holding your tongue. It's about opening your eyes. When you master the art of observation, you start moving differently. You make better choices because you're no longer driven by emotion. You're guided by insight. You learn who's real, who's pretending, and most importantly, who you truly are beneath all the noise. Silence becomes your teacher and observation becomes your wisdom, a combination that turns confusion into clarity and chaos into power. One of the hardest lessons to learn is that not everyone will understand you, and that's perfectly okay. We spend so much of our lives trying to explain ourselves to people who aren't even listening, trying to prove our worth to people who already decided not to see it. The need to be understood runs deep because it feels like validation, like confirmation that we matter. But when you chase that understanding from others, you hand them control over your peace. Detaching from the need to be understood is not about giving up on connection. It's about freeing yourself from emotional dependency. You stop living for approval and start living from authenticity. When you finally accept that not everyone will get you, life becomes lighter. You realize that your journey, your vision, your decisions, they don't need to make sense to anyone else. People view your choices through the lens of their own fears, limits, and experiences. What looks impossible to them may be exactly what you were born to do. That's why you can't let someone else's lack of understanding define your direction. If you spend your life explaining every move, you'll never move at all. Sometimes silence is the best explanation, because those who truly see you don't need the words, and those who don't see you won't believe them anyway. Letting go of the need to be understood doesn't mean you stop caring. It means you stop over-explaining. You stop begging for people to see your heart. You stop diluting your truth just to make it more comfortable for others to accept. You understand that some people are not meant to understand you because they're not meant to walk your path. It's not rejection, it's redirection. The more you grow, the smaller your circle gets, not because you've changed in a bad way, but because you've started valuing peace over pleasing. You don't need an audience to validate your purpose. The moment you detach from needing to be understood, you begin to find freedom. Freedom to think differently, act differently, and live differently. You start to make decisions based on what aligns with your soul instead of what aligns with other people's expectations. You realize that authenticity and approval rarely coexist. Every great change in history started with someone being misunderstood, someone who refused to shrink themselves just to fit in. The same applies to your life. Growth will always confuse those who are comfortable. When you no longer seek to be understood, you also stop taking things personally. You recognize that most of what people say or think about you isn't really about you. It's a reflection of them. Their insecurities, their fears, their limitations. You learn to let them project without absorbing. You stand firm in who you are, even when the world doesn't clap. That's real strength. The ability to stay true to yourself, quietly and unapologetically, knowing that your peace matters more than their approval. In silence, you no longer need to be understood because you finally understand yourself. Protecting your peace isn't selfish, it's survival. When you grow, evolve, and start building a stronger version of yourself, not everyone around you will celebrate that. Some will misunderstand it, some will resent it, and others will try to pull you back into the comfort of the old you, the one who is easy to access, easy to drain, and easy to manipulate. Protecting your peace means understanding that not everyone deserves a front row seat to your life. It's recognizing that your energy is a limited resource, and if you keep giving it to everyone who demands it, you'll have nothing left for yourself. Every time you say yes to people who disrupt your peace, you're saying no to your own growth. It's not about building walls, it's about creating boundaries. Clear, firm lines that protect your mind, your heart, and your progress. Boundaries aren't rude, they're necessary. They remind you that your emotional well-being matters just as much as anyone else's needs. The truth is, people who respect you won't be offended by your boundaries. The only ones who get upset are the ones who benefited from you having none. And that's how you know you're doing it right. Protecting your peace means knowing when to walk away. Not because you hate people, but because you love yourself enough to choose calm over chaos. Sometimes peace looks like deleting a number. Sometimes it looks like spending a Friday night alone instead of chasing validation in noisy rooms. Sometimes it looks like letting go of relationships that have expired, even if it hurts. Because the cost of keeping someone in your life who drains you is always higher than the pain of letting them go. When you begin to prioritize peace, everything in your life shifts. You stop reacting to every opinion, every argument, every piece of negativity thrown your way. You start to move differently. Slower, calmer, more intentional. You learn that silence is not weakness, it's strategy. You realize you don't have to respond to everything that tries to provoke you. Not every battle is worth fighting, not every comment deserves your attention, and not every person deserves your access. Peace becomes your filter. You start asking yourself, does this conversation bring me peace or drain me? Does this habit serve my growth or sabotage it? Does this person challenge me to rise or keep me stuck? Protecting your peace requires honesty, the kind that forces you to admit when something or someone no longer aligns with where you're headed. And yes, it's uncomfortable. Growth always is. But peace isn't found in comfort, it's found in clarity. When you protect your peace, you protect your potential. You create space for better things, better energy, better relationships, better opportunities. You stop living on defense and start living on purpose. You stop reacting to life and start creating it. Protecting your peace is not about isolating yourself, it's about mastering yourself. Choosing calm over chaos, purpose over pressure, and freedom over familiarity. Because when you protect your peace, you protect the future you're building. At the end of the day, it all comes down to this: your peace is your power. The world will always be noisy. People will always have opinions. Distractions will always find a way to test your boundaries. But you get to decide what enters your space, what deserves your energy, and what deserves silence. The truth is, protecting your peace is not about shutting people out. It's about inviting the right energy in. It's about choosing yourself. Not out of arrogance, but out of awareness. Because when you protect your peace, you protect your focus. You protect your mental clarity. You protect your ability to grow, to create, to love, and to become the person you're meant to be. You don't owe everyone access to you. You don't have to explain why you've changed, why you've pulled back, or why you've stopped entertaining what drains you. Growth doesn't always make sense to people who aren't growing. And that's okay. You're not here to be understood, you're here to evolve. So choose silence over chaos. Choose peace over pressure. Choose boundaries over burnout. Because every time you do, you're sending a message to yourself: I matter. My energy matters. My peace matters. You have one life, one chance to live it fully, intentionally, and with meaning. Don't waste it trying to please people who don't even value your presence. Protect your peace like it's sacred. Because it is. And when you do, you'll notice something powerful. Life starts to flow differently. You'll think clearer, love deeper, and move with a confidence that can't be shaken. So as you walk out of this moment, promise yourself that from today forward, you will not let the noise of the world drown out your inner calm. Promise yourself that you'll choose yourself even when it's uncomfortable, that you'll prioritize peace over people pleasing, and that you'll stay loyal to your growth, even when it requires solitude. Because peace isn't something you find, it's something you create, and it starts the moment you decide you're worth protecting. Thank you for listening. I hope these words reminded you of your power, your worth, and your right to protect your peace unapologetically. Take a deep breath, hold your head high, and move forward with calm confidence. Remember, silence is strength, boundaries are love, and your peace is priceless. Until next time, stay grounded, stay focused, and keep becoming the best version of yourself. Thank you so much for being here, and remember, not everyone deserves access to you, but you always deserve peace.